way it goes. Just the way it goes. Degrees.
Welcome, everybody, to another awesome episode of the Hookup on Music. And I am your host tonight, Tony. And in about a second here, I'm going to bring out my really awesome guest. But before I do that, I want to thank everybody again for joining me tonight. It is always awesome and it's always fun to share these awesome music journeys with you. It is always awesome to just talk about all different kinds of music. And well, tonight I got a really awesome guest. Let me bring him out here. I'm Tony, and my main man here is Bologna. How's it going, my man?
Tony, I can't tell you how excited I am to do this. I've been I talked to you pre-show. I've been a fan since Jump Street. I love the episode you did with Yumper talking Depeche Mode, and I realized early on that I could just listen to people talk about music. So I'm excited to talk about music. I'm excited to talk to you. And I feel like we got a Tony Bologna connection right here.
You know, they used to say Tony Bologna to me all the time growing up, and I was always like, don't call me that. And then now I was thinking about it today, and if I knew that I was going to meet you, Bologna, and I would say, you know what, call me fucking Tony Bologna.
Yeah.
That's totally,
I
okay.
ran with it.
I want to say, first of all, you were not there, but I did stop by your guys' tailgate on Sunday.
Thank you.
I had about 4 tacos, and I ate them so quickly that the person next to me didn't even see how quickly I ate those tacos because they were so good. You guys are always awesome and always do good stuff. So I'm really excited to also share this time with you, my man. So thank you for joining me.
I appreciate it. I appreciate you coming to the tailgate. Yeah, I couldn't make it on Sunday, but there's going to be
the other
whole
three.
summer.
The other three were there, awesome,
yeah,
and
they
rocking
were.
And
Yeah, so shout out Johnny. Johnny's in the comments,
yes.
And Jason and Dougie. They were representing, and
yes,
we tailgate all White Sox season long. So we got a fun summer planned.
It was a really good time, and starting with a good time. What have you been listening to, my man?
All right, man. So I teased this on a tweet and in Instagram.
Okay.
I've been listening to a lot of things. In my line of work, I'm typically in the office by myself, or I'm on a machine with headphones on. So I have a lot of time to listen to either podcast or live sports or music or anything like that. So I've been in a rut of late trying to find new music. And it just so happened that I started liking Mexican regional music. So there's this guy called Peso Pluma, who obviously it's in Spanish. There you go.
I saw your tweet and I said, you know what? This is probably where we're going to go. So that's
see. Exactly what I've been listening to. I wanted to be honest. I have been listening to 1975 and Taylor Swift. We're going to get to that, but I wanted to start with Peso Pluma because he kind of came out of nowhere. He is, he's topping the Billboard charts, not only in Mexico, but in the United States and all over the world. He hasn't had a debut album. He's been guesting on a bunch of different spots and just releasing singles. And he's kind of taken the world by storm. He was at Coachella. He was on Jimmy Fallon. So it's kind of like an overnight success story. And I got kind of like got caught up in it. I usually don't listen to a lot of Spanish music. I do like a little bit of Spanish rock. My wife and I went to the Maná concert at the
Oh,
United Center.
very
Awesome time. We like that a lot. But for some reason, this guy's been resonating with not only me, but a lot of people. And what I like to compare it to is that there's been like an infusion. It's very much like trap or even like early 90s West Coast hip hop. Those are the
Okay.
lyrics, but it's behind, the tubas and the accordion, more trumpets and kind of the standard Mexican music. So
Oh,
it kind of came out of nowhere. It's surprising, but I've been listening to it a lot.
oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna check that out. I mean, 23 years old, you know what I mean? And you whole career, and you're saying not an album yet?
Yeah.
Definitely exciting.
So
Definitely
it's
exciting.
so it's crazy. And then Taylor Swift in the 1975. I feel like there's been a lot to do about them. Actually, the lead singer, Maddie Healy, and Taylor Swift dating. Big whole thing. People don't like him. He's controversial. He's controversial kind of on purpose. I've talked to Johnny, my cousin, the Southside Bum from the Bumcast, and I really like the Talking Heads. The
Mhm.
1975 is basically the Talking Heads in 2023. I feel like he gets a lot of his inspiration on his live show from there. A lot of the music is very much Talking Heads like, and I've always liked the Talking Heads. So their latest album was in 2022, and I've been listening to it ever since. I mean, I've been listening to them for a long time, but I really like them. I feel like I know some people will say like not synth pop, but just like pop rock and stuff like that. But I feel like they still have a lot of like alternative influences. And that's where I, made my bones listening to music was a lot of, alternative 80s music. So that's why I
N
like
n
75.
1975 we're gonna talk a little while later about some, early music concerts we went to, but I went to one of those Q101 picnics, and
Yeah.
they headlined the one that one of the ones well, I went to a few of them in the recently, but they headlined one of the ones I went to, and but as you said, man, they put on a really good show, really good light show. I went in not really knowing much or anything, and, now I play, what's the one song? It's off the first album. Last night. I think that's what it's called. I'm gonna get to it here, but really good band, man. Really
Yeah.
good stuff.
Yeah. They had two
Really
really big singles off that album. One
somebody
called
else. That's the
Sex.
song
Oh,
I was
somebody
thinking.
else. Yeah. Somebody
I
else was
probably have listened to
all
that
over.
song a lot because, as you stated, it gives me those vibes from Depeche Mode, Talking Heads, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And then the last one, Taylor Swift, I feel like it almost started off as like a joke, but not really. I've always been really into the singer-songwriters, whether
Yeah,
it be, early John Mayer when I was growing up and things like that. My
I want to run through
daughter
the halls of my high school. I want to
exactly.
scream
Yeah,
at the,
that Room for Squares album.
oh yeah.
And obviously she's got a whole litany of producers and supposedly she writes her own songs and she credits, like Bon Iver and Jack Antonoff from Bleachers as a big reason of like her last 4 albums. But it's still the singer-songwriter, and my daughter is really into her now. So I can't escape it even if I wanted to. So of all of the pop music that's out there, a lot of the Kiss FM B96 stuff, at least I'm able to tolerate, and not even tolerate. I'm a fan of Taylor Swift, so I'll listen to them. I listen to her a lot, and then I will say now that we're talking about her, I'll hashtag it on Instagram and Twitter. One of the biggest, most listened to Bumcast ever was us talking about Taylor Swift and tagging Swifties, and it just blows up. So
Yep.
get ready for some numbers.
Hey, I'm okay with that. I a couple weeks ago tried to get someone on here to talk about Taylor Swift. So as when you stated it, I'm like, I sure hope he brings trying to get everything like I stated, because honestly, I have right now I couldn't really tell you a whole lot about her music, but all I see are
Yeah.
people saying good things,
So the
which
crazy
I
thing
don't have
about
anything
it,
bad to say because I haven't listened to it yet.
yeah. So the crazy thing about it, it's like you could be a fan, you could hate her, whatever, her antics at award shows and her dancing and dating life. I don't give a fuck who you date and what you date, and it doesn't matter to me. But what she's doing live music wise is kind of unprecedented. She's selling out football stadiums. I don't know if you saw the video of her, it was like 2 weeks ago in Philadelphia. 65,000 people in the stadium, 20,000 people outside of the stadium singing along.
Yeah.
I saw a post about her coming to Soldier Field next week, and people are already planning on standing all around basically the Soldier Field campus, and they're expecting like 15-20,000 people, not even in the stadium, outside singing along to her songs. They said if the city really wanted to, they could put a screen of her live show in Grant Park, and they'd probably be 20,000 people there,
Oh,
which is
yeah.
crazy. You know, it's not like
That
you
is.
don't even have a ticket to go in and you're still going to see them, which is awesome.
Yeah, and
It's
there's something,
basically unprecedented.
there's something with the music. I mean, it's not, I don't want to use Backstreet Boys and NSYNC and knock on them, but like there's actually something to her music. Like it's actually, there's solid something to it. And, it's worth every, from what I've seen and people talk about, it seems to be worth everything.
It definitely resonates with people. It definitely resonates with a big group of people.
That's generally what you want, and what we want are to talk about some awesome concerts. And you said there you've got some written down.
Yes.
Earlier you had brought up the Warp Tour. You said you had been to some Warp Tours.
Yep.
What Warp Tour was your favorite of the ones that you went to?
Oh man. So we've been to so many. I've been to so many live concerts like this. So like it started with the Jamborees, and then it morphed into the Warp Tours and the picnics.
Well, then let's start with the Jamboree.
No. We could do Warp Tour. The one I remember vividly was we drove up to Milwaukee to see it. So this was probably later on in the iteration of Warp Tour, probably 2009 almost. But we drove there. I'm a big Academy Is fan. They're from Chicago. They have the drummer that's from Milwaukee. So they had a huge presence there. They were just hanging out in the crowd. I remember seeing them in like merch tent, and by that time they were pretty big. So me and my wife got pictures with them, went to go see them. It was a really cool memory for us of them just like hanging out with the crowd basically before their show. So yeah, I like going up to Milwaukee for concerts, especially, if you can't get tickets to a Chicago show. The Rave is a pretty decent venue to go to, and their amphitheater is basically like the World here. That's a very similar setup. So I highly recommend people, if you can't make it to a show in Chicago, just take the drive up to Milwaukee. It's not that bad.
Definitely. That's kind of like, as you stated, that's right around that same time as when I start going to concerts, those Jamborees. Those were, what was the first Jamboree you went to?
97.
97. Which one was that one?
So it was my 7th grade going into 8th grade year. It had, I actually have it written down here. So it had Beck, Bush, Echo and the Bunnymen, Erasure, Moby, Jamiroquai, Social Distortion, Republica, the Cardigans, the Bosstones, Verve Pipe, and Veruca Salt. And I talked to you pre-show about how like my musical influence has a lot to do with my uncles. Johnny was on your podcast talking about the same thing. They would take us to live shows. He's my godfather, my Uncle Paul. Whenever I wanted to go to a show, he was really into live music. He would just take me. Like it was like, well, yeah, let's do it. Let's go see it. So I wanted to go to Jamboree 97. Ended up seeing like a lot of bands that I'd liked at the time, like Beck and Bush, and I'm still a fan of those.
Oh yeah.
Erasure was unreal. They closed the show out. I didn't know who they were at the time. I obviously they were huge in the 80s and early 90s. But that I remember it vividly. I'm like, oh man, Erasure's awesome. So then that in turn was when I backtracked and got into, like Depeche Mode and all of that 80s synth pop basically was from that Jamboree. And that's why I like to go to concerts in general. Not necessarily to see the people you want to go see, because that's always fun, but there's always a band that's going to stick out. There's going to be like, whoa, this is something different. And then you kind of, go into the basically spider web of that.
Well, that's kind of even us here, I mean, I've heard the Academy Is, but I haven't really listened to them deeply. And now that you say you like them, I'm going to write them down and give them a chance. Cause that's why, it's the same thing. Like, as you said, with concerts, man, how many bands, I mean, honestly, this is no joke. Today at work, I sang the Cardigans' Love Fool. So you mentioned the Cardigans right there at Jamboree, and earlier
Yeah.
on this same day, for some no unknown reason, because someone brought up the Cardigans, I sang that song. I don't know. I always remember that they put some Black Sabbath covers on their albums. That's why I brought them up earlier. But that being said, awesome. And then that next Jamboree was the first one I went to, 98.
Okay. Yeah,
That's the
98.
one with the Bare Naked Ladies, right?
Yep.
And
Bare
Soul
Naked
Asylum.
Ladies, Ben Folds 5. And that's where you mentioned Creed.
Yep.
Eve 6, the Foo Fighters, Scott Weiland, Soul Asylum, They Might Be Giant, and Space Hog.
So did you like Creed at one point?
Tony, no, not at all. And I don't want this to be known as the Creed episode
I
now,
saw,
Tony.
and I was like,
No.
because I'm not gonna lie, back then they were okay to me. But if you didn't like them, we're gonna move forward.
No, it's funny. You know what's funny? Like we talked about with the Peso Pluma or Taylor Swift, I don't judge anybody that likes music, dude. Everyone likes something different, and there's something for everyone. Who am I to be like, oh, Creed stunk? Obviously, they resonated with a lot of people.
That was my hard rock.
Yeah,
I was really into the hard rock. But now, when you look back, man, it was cheesy. But honestly, though, were you a Limp Bizkit guy?
I was not. I never got into
like all that new metal stuff.
I never got into new metal. Johnny was in the comments. Johnny liked it.
Good for you. It's not like I'm like, oh man, you really missed out. No.
I was more doing the Green Day Blink thing at that time. Weezer.
Which I honestly, sadly, I was doing the same thing too. Which I saw you recently went to that concert, which was awesome.
Yeah, it was good to see them live again for a long time. I had seen them a bunch, back in my early days, but obviously Mark, Tom, and Travis getting reunited after some health scares and some personal issues. It was cool, and the United Center was rocking. So shout out Svo, because he was the one that hooked it up with tickets. We had a nice time, and yeah, man, any live music is I'm not going to complain about.
And that's how I am too, man. Even bands that there's a band that everyone really, 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 really dislikes on here. They're called the Dave Matthews Band. I mean, I've seen them in the fifth row because I met somebody who was one of the first fan club members, and I was in the fifth row, man, and have a couple drinks, man, and you're in the fifth row of any concert. You can't tell me you're not going to have a good time, even someone who hates certain bands.
So I get the same thing. I don't hate Dave Matthews Band. I actually think a couple of their albums are decent or actually good. I've never seen them live. I don't think that's my crowd, to tell you the truth.
No.
But well, that's
there we go. Here we're going to get to the problem with the band. The crowd.
Yes.
Sometimes his voice. But like the band itself, and when they start to jam, it's a little bit, it's not the worst, but back to, what are some of your other favorites that you've been to?
If I'm talking about the jamborees, Jamboree 99 was, the one me and Johnny went to. Red Hot Chili Peppers and the Offspring were there. Blink was there. Silverchair, which is a very, I don't want to say underrated, but their first two albums I loved so much. So I really like
4 hours talking about Freak Show one day. So because that's one of my favorite. Love that album. But the first album's great too. They're both great.
Jamboree 99, I remember, the Offspring going crazy, Chili Peppers, they were throwing stuff at the stage. And at the time, you're like 13 years old. I was like, holy shit, this is something else. So that's the second. I've said Blink 2 more times. But yeah. But yeah, I mean, all of those bands that you got up there, I feel like you painted me with a broad brush, and that's exactly. Paramore puts on a great show. Blink a bunch of times. I've seen Green Day a bunch. My wife is a huge My Chemical Romance fan, so seeing them last year at Riot Fest after them getting delayed because of COVID and the reunion and all of that stuff. That was pretty cool. So both Julie and I are a big Riot Fest and just festival fans in general. I will say one band that you said that like, I talked about like, you go to see someone you're not expecting and then you kind of fall into that spider web. Roxy's in the comments. I saw Ghost at Lollapalooza way back when on accident because we were sitting waiting for someone else. I feel like it was like Ellie Goulding or some just random person we're waiting to see. And then Ghost comes on, their full getup, playing louder then than they usually do now. You know, they're a little heavier in the beginning.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I didn't know anything about them, and I'm like, holy hell, this is crazy. Awesome show. I liked it. Never really got into it again. And then I saw them on Jimmy Kimmel like 2 summers ago. And I was like, I remember these guys. So then I went back and listened to them. And now both Julie and I, huge Ghost fans, like most of White Sox Twitter. But it's something that like I remember seeing them. I'm like, oh yeah, I did remember seeing them. Never really followed up with it until now.
That's the thing, is that you go ahead and, you, as you stated earlier, there's bands that kind of not prepared that they're going to be so good, and you see them, and then all of a sudden they start growing on you, and that's Ghost. At that point, in this case, took a little bit while longer, but you remember back then too. I remember going at the same time the Jamborees were going on. Rock 103.5 had Rock Stock, and that was at there too. And I'll never forget this. This is one of the craziest things, is guitarist Brian May from Queen playing the side stage, only 15 people watching him. And then you think of this guy playing Wembley Stadium with Queen, and then he played the parking lot of Orland in Tinley Park with 15 people. And I think that's crazily awesome that this guy, and he's put on a good show, played a couple Queen songs, but those radio shows, man, were awesome.
Yeah, and I mean, they serve a purpose, and now they're not as big. We talked about the Picnics, and they used to be Twisted Christmas, and now it's the Night We Stole Christmas or something else.
But they always 5 nights with
they make it a 5-night thing, but they're still they serve a purpose, especially with a younger audience. Like me as a younger kid, being able to see a day's worth of bands that you might not ever see again, or that'll get you into music. That's why I got into live music, because I was like, holy shit, this is a fun ass day. Now I'm getting old. I can't do the 3-day fest. I could barely do 1 day. But maybe they're not for me anymore. They're for the next generation.
Well, that's what was really cool, especially the first Blink performance at Coachella. I got it on my big screen TV, and I'm watching it like that, and I'm like, okay, I'm not in the pit, but I could feel it from right here. Maybe, but like you said, it's always good to get out every now and then. Are you going to the Riot Fest this year?
We are. We don't know when or what day yet. We for sure want to see a couple of the bands on there. I mean, they're not on this graphic, but I'm a huge AFI guy. I've been a fan of Davey Havok for a long, long time. Probably since like grade school. No, like right around like 2000, 2002. But whenever they're in town, I try to go see them. So I definitely want to see whatever day AFI is playing, and then work my schedule around there. Because a lot of the headliners are awesome. I've been lucky enough to see most of the headliners for this year's Riot Fest. So I'm not going to be mad if it's like, Foo Fighters one day or however it lines up. I'm going for AFI, and then I'll work around that.
That's good. It's a good plan. You won't get too upset that way.
Yeah.
But those are going through different concerts like that. Do you find yourself, because now I have a 2-year-old. I know you have
same.
young, and that's what's tough. That's what's tough about the 3-day fest. Especially my wife wants to come too, and I'm like, no, you're going to stay home, and I'm going to go the 3 days.
That's not going to fly.
No, it's tough enough sometimes at Sox games, to be like, you're going to stay here. I got to go. Please, no. But when everyone could go, man, it's always a good time.
And obviously, like, especially on the 3-day fest, it mostly I like to say it revolves around AFI and whoever I want to go see, but a lot of it revolves around sitters too. If my mom could watch them on Friday and Julie's mom could watch them on Sunday, maybe we go 2 days, but we'll find out. So it's not up to us anymore.
That is absolutely true. Which you said, earlier when you brought up, same thing with like music. Sometimes I'm sure you sometimes have to play, as you said earlier, certain songs maybe for your daughter that she likes, that and that's kind of how it is for my daughter too. She started when she was younger. She listened to actually a lot more, I could say younger, like she's only 2 years old, but what I mean is like now they got a development of certain songs that they like to hear. Do you said earlier your daughter likes the 19th? Was that who you said?
So you know what, we're lucky enough to where like we started her at a young age. And it's the same thing for us. And I got molded by the music my parents and my uncles and everyone listened to. So hopefully we're molding her under our listening. So yeah, she listened to a lot of 1975. What else? Bleachers is one of Julie's favorite bands. That's why I mentioned Taylor Swift and Jack Antonoff going.
They were actually at that same picnic with 1975.
Yeah, we were there.
Dude, this live show blew me away, man. He was really, really good.
Bleachers
really awesome.
is sneaky, a really, really good live show that not a lot of people know about. So we've seen them a bunch. We saw them at a hole in the wall. Like it was basically like a hotel room. It was a private show for some corporate function. We had no business being there, but Julie's boss knew that she really liked Bleachers and was able to finagle 2 tickets. So we were there, and it was like literally like this basement, and they just ripped it for an hour and a half. And to this day, I mean, we've seen a lot of bands, and that like moment, I was like, holy cow, these guys blew us out of the water. It was awesome.
Very, very awesome. So you guys put on really, really, really awesome tailgates. So right now, let's pretend we have a time machine, and you get to put on a tailgate in the 70s, the 80s, or the 90s.
Okay.
Let's start with the 70s. What is your 70s tailgate gonna look like?
Mailman Jackson in the comments. We both have an affinity for Tom Petty. I have this thing where like it was a bit that me and Jason started to kind of make his wife, or at the time girlfriend, mad that we used to say Tom Petty's better than the Beatles. Somehow I got high on my own supply and started believing it, because like I went back into the catalog, and I'm like talking to her about what about this song and what about this song. So now I'm just a huge Petty fan. One of my biggest regrets was that not regret, because like it just wasn't in the cards for us, but we were supposed to go to that Wrigley show the last summer before he passed away, and I never got to see them. And I like to brag and whatever about seeing all these bands, and like, there's not many on the bucket list that we haven't checked off yet. I'm never going to be able to check off that Petty one, because he passed away, and I was like, damn, that sucks.
You're absolutely right. When he passed away, I mean, I went really deep into the catalog, lost tracks, deep tracks, all around tracks. And you're not wrong, man. I mean, I think a lot of people get mixed up, some with the singles and stuff like that, but great artist, and he's if not agreeing with you, he's definitely, I think, an equal to the Beatles. He's definitely really, really good.
Yeah, I understand the history of the Beatles, and
it's not even that. It's not even that. I gotta watch myself, because I don't want anybody. If we were off camera, I'd say some things, but I'm just trying not to upset anybody out there. And at the very least, you're absolutely correct.
But
because Tom Petty's really, really good.
So we're molding this. What I like to do, especially at the tailgates, it's got to be something for everyone. And I feel like Petty has something for everyone. You have the popular tracks. They got a little more jam band stuff. There's something for everyone. And that's how you kind of have to mold your playlist when you're at these tailgates, because you can't just start, even me, like I just talked about him at the beginning of the show. I'm not going to be playing Peso Pluma for all of me and one other person, you got to play to the crowd.
You got to get everybody.
Exactly.
Get everybody going. You got to get everybody, up and moving, man. And that's what you do in these tailgates. So Tom Petty, that's a good one for the 70s.
What would your be? What would your answer be?
It would depend on what kind of because the 70s are really different than now. Like if it's 78, we could really go far out and have a Parliament tailgate one weekend. Then the next weekend we can get punk and like get mohawks and stuff and do like the Ramones and stuff like that. And then, in the real dead heat of summer, we'll wear bell bottoms and have like a disco, and then get so trashed that people start fighting. Just have fun is the goal for these. Whereas, I'm not saying as we move along, you have the 80s. Okay. So what would your tailgate look like in the 80s?
I will say I might have to bring those shorts back. Those 80s shorts are working. Some man thigh. That'll be interesting for the Chicago Sports Bums to do that. We talked about it earlier. I never really if we're talking 80s, I never got into the hair metal or any of that stuff. It was always, Depeche Mode, Erasure.
No Def Leppard or Motley Crue for you?
I do. No, going back, I do like a lot of like Motley Crue. Yeah. I like me and Julie saw Guns N' Roses when they came back, and So there is some of that. I do like a lot of it, but I just definitely gravitate towards the synth pop and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
that's how
So
that's
yeah,
how
it's gonna be Depeche Mode, it's gonna be Erasure, it'll be a little bit, In Excess is up there, a little bit of In Excess in there,
love In
but
Excess.
it's gonna
One of
be
my
all
favorites.
of that type of music,
Really
at
good.
least in the 80s.
Um, we got a lot of different. Well, he
No
got
rat
here.
talk.
We got. No, come on, some round and round has to make it. Has to make the list.
Round and round. No, there. You know what? Because I just talked about it has to be all encompassing.
Yeah,
You got to kind of throw something for everyone. There
yeah,
would probably be honest to God, there'd probably be a shit ton of Michael Jackson involved.
yeah.
You know?
That is true. That is true. The whole Thriller album. It
Yeah,
depends on what or bad. It depends on what era of the
yeah.
'80s.
Because it's not just my tailgate. You're trying to get everyone involved.
Well, that's what makes a perfect tailgate is you're like picking songs for everybody.
Right.
I've been to certain ones where you could hear it and it's just like some guy's playlist. It's his favorite song. So it's like, well, the slow acoustic song in the middle here just isn't what we're looking for.
So in the beginning, right before the start of the White Sox season, I threw out a tweet on the Chicago Sports Bums Twitter feed, and I was like, "What's your one song for your tailgate?"
Mhm.
And then I made that tailgate playlist, basically the Whiskey at Comiskey playlist. There was everything. I mean, we have Ghost in there. We have like some Allman Brothers. There's like the Yohan Moncada walk up song. We have everything. So
That's
I
good.
mean, and I feel like it works.
It does, and that's what you do, man. You weave and you mix, and everyone has a good time listening.
Yeah.
So how about your '90s mix, your '90s tailgate? So where
So
are we going here?
this is really interesting. I talked about being really influenced by my uncle, and I got into the Green Day and all that. But earlier than that, my cousins were really into West Coast hip hop. So Easy
Mm.
E, Dr. Dre, Snoop Dogg's Doggy Style is still one of my probably top 10 albums. I love that album, and I want to yell at people that I don't know if it's Spotify or whoever the record label, it's probably Death Row still, but they don't have that album for streaming. I mean,
Oh, they
people
don't?
upload it kind of bootleg. If you
Oh,
go on Spotify, you can't just stream the full album completely. And I'm like, what are we
that
doing?
little
It's
cartoon
2023.
booklet that came in the
Yeah.
CD, man, that
So
was amazing back
there's
then,
going to
man.
be some Doggy Style on there. There's definitely going to be some Tupac, all of that, like West Coast and even East Coast hip hop, Biggie.
Hit 'Em Up, man. Love that song by Tupac.
Mm-hmm.
Really, really good, man. You gotta have that. That would be a good fun tailgate, I think.
A
Lots
90s
of
tailgate
fun.
would be fun. Maybe we
know.
start doing themed tailgates.
I think maybe we're onto something here. I think
I
you
like it.
definitely should definitely start to do that. But thank you so much for joining me tonight, my man.
Dude, I could keep going. I know I told you before you run a tight ship, which is awesome, but you leave me wanting more. You're a tease.
That's what I told you. So,
awesome.
like as I said, like the bat signal, man, put that bat signal up and we will get together again. And the door is always open for more rock and roll.
Thank you.
I really appreciate you coming on and just taking a little bit of time and talking some music.
Always, whenever, dude.
All right, my man. Thank you so much, Bologna.
Of course. Thank you, Tony.
Talk to you soon. All right. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight. Again, my name is Tony. You can find us at the Penguin Sadistic YouTube channel. We have the Sadistic Penguin website, which is really, really, really awesome. A lot of cool stuff there. You could find this at the Hookup on Music on the Twitter, also on the Instagram, which my wife is running, and she's doing a really, 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 really awesome job. Also want to say, check out everything else that's going on the channel. Really, really awesome stuff. Really always new stuff. Yumper and Spo got a lot of cool things coming up. Going to see Indiana Jones. That's going to be awesome. A lot of fun there. Check out the latest draft episodes when they come out. Please do that. Check out all the blogs that are on the Sadistic Penguin website. But until next time, everybody, thank you so much. I didn't play this when he was here, but I got to play it right now. I want to thank Bologna again for coming on. It's awesome always when people can join me. And until next time, thank you, everyone, and have a good rest of your week.